Got a killer drum sound up. I mean, we've only, would we take an hour and a half to set this stuff up? Sounds really good. So, brand new UA Apollo 8P. My good buddy CURT BISQUERA.
Hey, what's up?
There he is.
Do some filming with the 8P today. UA. It's going to be awesome.
Pretty exciting.
Very exciting.
What kind of kick drum you have here, CURT?
It's a PDP 16x22. It's their Concept Maple Series, wood hoops. This is a 9x13. And then a 16x16 floor tom.
Sweet.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, people like to see this stuff, so it's time to do it. This is what your keys are good for.
Yep.
Oh! I just wrecked the box.
Yeah, look at that. You wrecked the box, bro.
The box. I'm never going to take it back now if it doesn't work.
I know.
No, sorry.
No, sorry. Messed up the box.
That's why you're not supposed to use your keys. Something sharper would be
Look at
better.
that.
Look at this thing.
Drum roll.
Oh!
Ooh.
It's a box within a box.
I love boxes inside of a box.
Like those Russian, you know.
Yeah, the little dudes.
Go! Apollo 8P, start. I have to go there, download the right software and install it. Here we go.
So I'm just plugging in my microphones. Here's my overheads, snare mic. Plugging in my microphones into the back of the lovely Apollo 8P. And so first is my kick drum, of course. I'll start there. I'm going to go into channel 2, which I've already plugged in. It's that simple. And I'll follow suit with the snare drum now. Snare drum. So on and so forth. So
What do you use on the snare? Is that an AT mic?
yeah, it's an AT650.
And then on the toms, you got these little...
On the toms, these are the clip-on condenser mic 350s. These are really cool. They sound great. And they're used for, you know, anything. Any high SPL kind of scenario.
Sweet.
Then my overheads are for the 5100s. Which are
Also
very
AT,
cool.
right?
Also AT. Inside the kick drum is a 2500.
So we got some mics set up.
Yes.
Mics on the kick, mics on the toms. We got some overheads going. Tell us about overheads because
Overhead miking. That's ultimately your sound.
Okay.
So, as I've learned through the years with working with guys like Joe Ciccarelli, Al Schmidt, Ed Cherney, the list goes on and on. These guys, I'd always ask them, hey, how do you set up your overheads? And so one of the methods I learned that I apply at my studio is the rule of thumb, overheads should be 2 lengths of drumsticks, and the average drumstick is 16 inches long.
Okay.
So if you do 2 drumsticks, it's about like that, but that's too low because I would totally hit it. So what I do always, usually with my recording, is I do 3 drumsticks, and that totals out to be 48 inches.
From the snare drum.
From the snare drum, from the center of the snare drum. Now don't forget, not just anywhere in the snare drum, but the actual center of the snare drum. So measure 3 drumsticks, which is 16 inches. 16 times 3 is 48.
Okay.
So go 48 inches on your overhead left, and same with your overhead right.
Okay.
So that'll be 48 inches there. Now, of course, you could eyeball it using your drumsticks, but I am a champion of being OCD. So I get my 48 inches out.
Trusty tape measure.
Trusty tape measure. And then I go to the center of the snare drum, measure it. There's 48 right there. Look at that perfectly. And again over here, 48 inches from the center. Boom, 48. So, and the reason of this is because when you're hitting the snare drum, that is the fastest transient of your drum sound, meaning that it's the one that responds the quickest. So you want that sound to hit evenly to both overhead right and overhead left. And I usually do the widespread miking as opposed to XY, just because I like the spread of the sound of overhead miking. Plus it picks up all the brass on top, all the overhead stuff, the cymbals, and some of the tom bleed as well.
So you kind of feel like it's the best, because I always wondered about that. There's XY miking, and then there's, you see different methods, right?
Yeah.
XY miking, or this is like a spaced stereo pair.
Yeah, spaced stereo. I like spaced stereo because I like to feel like when I listen back in the mix, I'm sitting on the drum stool and I'm hearing everything. Also, when I do mix, I mix drummer perspective. So when I'm listening to the mix, I'm listening to it as if I'm playing drums within the music that I'm hearing back to me.
Panning wise.
A matter of preference with people. They mix either audience perspective or drummer perspective. I like drummer because I'm a drummer. So I like hearing the toms go from left to right, and hearing the crash over here on the left, hearing the crash over here on the right.
Got it.
And,
so the hi-hat is in your mix, you would pan left a little bit.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Great advice. Okay, and the reason for the space stereo pair and the exact measurement of is it 48 inches? Is that right?
48 inches, 3 drumsticks in length.
And
The average drumstick is 16 inches long.
And the reason is phasing, right?
Phasing.
Because you want the sound to arrive at both microphones
Correct.
at the same time,
At the
right?
same time, yes.
So that they don't cancel each other out or sound out of phase in some
Correct.
weird cancellation.
Correct. Because the snare drum is the fastest, most quickest transient sound of the drum kit that will reach the microphones at the same time. So then you have to measure accordingly. Now, the overhead mics, as you can see, one's higher, one's lower. I see a lot of people do it even, but again, you're going to run into that issue of phasing. So who cares what they look like, just as long as they sound perfect. So again, I do mine with the wide stereo setup, and I do kick them out a little bit. I don't put them directly overhead. I kick them out just to the left, just to the right, just a little bit, so it's getting a wider spread, and it'll still pick up within the boundary of like the inner side of the microphone on each side.
And I guess just in theory, as long as you're in phase, you'll be able to pan them in a bit if you don't want it that wide, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is in theory for sure. When you have them perfectly balanced, you could then go hard left or hard right, and you could pan them in a little bit if you want it more of a mono effect or a little more focused effect.
Kind of makes sense because it's like, why limit yourself as far as the stereo image goes by putting them in closer when you can have them wider and then just pull them in?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
cool. So how do you feel about kick? We can get into some of the other mic positions here, but how do you feel about the kick being out of phase sometimes with the overheads? Does that ever happen?
You know, that does happen a lot, but you know, I've asked a few of my engineer friends about that, and they're like, well, as long as it sounds good and it's not making your eyeballs like go in the back side of your head.
Right.
If you know, because sometimes it could be out of phase, but it'll sound good. But again, I always try to have everything in phase. So what I'll do usually is just flip the phase on the box. Today we're using the Apollo 8P, so I would flip the phase on that if it was out of phase. Hopefully it's not. I have a May miking system with a Audio-Technica 2500 mounted inside. You can't see it from the front there, or the back, but it's in there and it's mounted just because I like the ease of use. You know, when I'm having to cart my drums around, I go to different studios, I can just plug right in and it just sounds great right off the bat.
Awesome. We've decided to go with stereo or with a room mic today instead of a hi-hat mic.
Yeah, we're going with the room mic instead of hi-hat today.
Yeah.
So we could get a more ambient sound. So yeah, so it's kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, overhead left, overhead right.
How do you feel about the distance of the microphones off the toms and the snare and how you angle them and stuff? Is there any tips for that?
Yeah, for these 350s, which are clip-on, and these are used a lot in live situations too. And so what I like to do is I use the 3-finger rule of thumb.
Okay.
So I put my 3 fingers together. I guess, would that be Scout's honor? I don't know. I was never a Boy Scout. But I use 3 fingers and, you know, general. And I'll put that just right over the drum head, not completely down, sort of pointing toward the middle. So I'll use 3 fingers there. And again, that technique here.
Okay.
So 3 fingers. And then that will usually get you a nice balanced sound in terms of attack, tone, and overall sound of the drum.
Okay.
And with these microphones, it's really cool because it sounds like a tom when you plug them in. Same with the 650 for the snare drum mic, instantaneous. And what's cool about having the 8P is you could really dial it in with your mic pre of choice, EQ, compression.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to use certain mic pre's on the kick, the snare, and on the toms, different kinds of stuff. And it's kind of like you get to build your studio with each session.
Exactly.
Right? It's like we can use some APIs if you want on the toms and Neves on this kick and snare. We're going to do that. So yeah, last but not least, we got a room mic set up over here.
Oh, yeah.
This guy is a Sterling Audio ST170, I believe it is called. And I got it set up in Omni. And I got it backed off far away from the drums. There's a hallway here, and this hallway tends to pick up really good, just kind of ambient sound, and just can sound as huge as you want it to, depending on how hard you crush it with some compression and stuff like that. So we're gonna go with this and see how it sounds. In UA console here, we've got from channel 2 through 8 is all the drum mics. So I've got these Neve 1073 pre's on kick and snare. I'm using the API Vision tom mics, rack tom and floor tom, and then I'm using the SSLs on the overheads.
It sounds so good. It took us about an hour and a half to set up the kit, and it sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah, really, we just pulled them up and we got levels.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
that quick.
Trying the 610, the UA 610 on the room mic, and then I'm crushing it quite a bit with a distressor. Not too over the top, actually, because I want to leave a little bit of room for the mix.
Right.
But we're squishing it with this guy, and it's a sound. It's a thing, and it sounds really good. fun experiment.
So much fun. Thank you, UA, for sending out the AP. Man, just a joy to plug the drums in there and Pete's guitar and make some amazing sounding music.
I mean, it's only like 6 o'clock. I think we started around 2.
Yeah.
For lunch,
yeah.
right? First.
And we had a coffee at lunch and got a couple cables we needed, and here we are. So easy, just plug and play and have a good time.
Yeah, experiment with the virtual mic pre's and unison inputs in console, and got some great sounds without even really trying very hard, actually, I feel like.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, we really just kind of, you'd asked me what pre's I wanted to use, and I said, okay, on the kick and snare, let's use the Neve. On the toms, let's use API. And overheads, let's use the SSL. And then the 610 on the room mic, and boom.
Sounded great.
We have it.
So now I gotta go make this a real song and try all the
Yes.
guitars and bass and all that business.
Yep.
So I got more work cut out for me, but this was a great start. So thank you.
It's a great start. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Let's do some more.
Let's do some more.
Okay.
And, thanks, UA. We appreciate it.
Thank you, UA.